Games. Shooty McBang Bang. Propaganda. Maybe a zombie? Welcome to Thrack Ops. Greetings, everybody. It's Thrack again. I hope you're doing well. Did you get that thing checked out? You should. You told me you wanted to go see the doctor. You should go see it. But enough of that. It is time for another episode of Thrack Ops. And today, we are looking at Call of Duty 3, which was released in 2006, I believe. Now, I'm saying we because today, I'm not riding solo. No. I kind of imagined this would have just been a solo podcast, but when I kind of shopped it around to people as like something I was going to do, there was a lot of people who were like, oh, that's a good idea. You know, I'd like to talk about this game or that game or whatever. And so I reached out to a bunch of people, and there will be guests coming through. But today is the first guest. And he wanted to talk about this one specifically. So I figured, why not? He doesn't do any normal podcasting. He's too much of a normie for that. But he does write for the blog on SuperPod. And he's one of my best frenemies. It's Will. Will, how you doing, man?
Well, I went to the doctor, like you said, and they said that I need to stop putting my penis into PlayStation 3s, but I don't think I'm going to do that.
Did they prescribe you some Tylenol?
They did, yeah. I think
and you
that's what
threw
caused
it
this.
And you threw it in their face, saying, "I can't.
Yeah,
I'm not
I just
allowed."
Have this deep compulsion.
Deep compulsion. Well, and that's your friend's PS3 too. It's not even yours.
That's true.
Yeah,
the PS3's been through a lot, I'm sure.
Oh, that it has. Fucking supercomputer. But anyways, thank you so much for showing up for this one of all freaking games.
Absolutely.
So I guess before we get into the nitty gritty, why don't you tell me a little bit about I guess your history with the Call of Duty series and maybe why you wanted to talk about Call of Duty 3.
Yeah, man. So I'm not the biggest Call of Duty person. I'm obviously like a lot of teenagers in the 2000s, like I played plenty of it, but it's never a series that really gripped me. But also it's not really its fault because outside of like Halo 2 and Halo 3, I was never addicted to very many shooters. That time in my life kind of came and went. But we did have a bunch of Call of Duties and Medal of Honors, and I can't remember if this one in particular, if we rented it or if we owned it, but we sure played a crap ton of it.
So it must be one that you remember fondly, because I assume you eventually got like Modern Warfare and World at War and Black Ops and all those guys, like at least messed around with them.
Yeah. So the last Call of Duty I played was probably Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 3. Whenever they moved over to like PS4, Xbox One, I went to college and didn't buy a console and didn't really game or have a PC that could play it, right? So I didn't really game outside of like retro games or Civ occasionally for 4 years. I do have a funny anecdote about Call of Duty 3 though. There was this kid. So Call of Duty 3 came out in 2006, so I was like in 6th grade probably, and or 7th grade, something like that. But anyway, there was this kid who was like obsessed with the fact that like a grandparent was French or something, and he made being French like part of his identity, which was really weird when you're like 11 or 12. And we used to make fun of this kid.
So he is kind of French though.
Pretty much, he is. But you know, It's one of those things where you have like 2 degrees separation from it, but you make it your whole personality, like Irish Americans.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, there's that cutscene in Call of Duty 3 where they're like making fun of the French resistance guy, and they're like, "Whatever you say, Frenchie," and we used to call him Frenchie after that, and he hated it. Like that was his nickname.
I feel like Frenchie is like a common nickname for people like that, though.
You're probably right, but we were like 12, so that was the first time we'd heard it.
Yeah, so you didn't know any better. That's fair.
So poor guy, he rocked that nickname like through high school, all because of Call of Duty 3.
Did he wear a beret?
He eventually joined the French Foreign Legion, so yes, probably. I'm not making any of this up. Real guy.
I believe you. Hopefully he's still kicking out there in France.
I have no idea.
Did he move to
he
France?
Did.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well, I mean, He's like those guys who are really obsessed with Japan, like anime. Like they like anime so much they moved to Japan. It's like, well, you did the thing, I guess.
Pretty much. I don't know if he has Instagram. I only was friends with him on Facebook, and he posted when he joined around like when I was in college, and that was like the last I ever heard of him. So hopefully he didn't die.
Yeah, maybe you really got into Clair Obscur Expedition 33. That's a very French
He
game.
strikes me as the type.
Yeah.
He was really big. The only thing I remember about him is he's a big OK Go fan.
Well, good for him. But I mean, I guess yes, OK Go, a very 2006 type of band, huh?
Yeah, we're really taking it back.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. So my history with Call of Duty 3, yeah, I remember when it was being like advertised everywhere, and like this is when Call of Duty was starting to become a big deal. Like it wasn't like it didn't like blow up in the popularity that it would with the very next entry, but it was like right on the cusp of it. And I remember I was in a Best Buy, like probably in early 2007, like I think before Call of Duty 4 came out, and I had two games in my hand. My parents would let me buy one of them. It was Call of Duty 3 or Rainbow Six Vegas 1, because I had seen previews for both of them, and I thought, and both of them looked really, really cool. And I was like, which one do I get? I don't, and I went with Rainbow Six Vegas. I skipped out on 3 at that particular time. And Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2 became some of my most favorite games from this era. But that's another story for another day. And then I eventually went back and played Call of Duty 3. It must have been, I think it was after I had played the later entries in the series. So by the time I got to it, I didn't have the same excitement for it that I did at first. But I think this game is one that really kind of suffered, at least later on, from just not holding up with the games that would come after from Infinity Ward and even what Treyarch would do later. Because even though this is Treyarch's second game in the series, it is their first handling of like a major mainline title, because Big Red 1 was always considered a spin-off. From what I know of the development of the game, like as soon as Big Red 1 was done, Activision was like, okay, great, can you just make the next one real quick, because Infinity Ward is busy doing something different. I don't know. We don't even know if it's going to work. It's some weird modern warfare bullshit. So we need you to make the other World War II game. And Treyarch was like, okay. And according to a guy named Noah Heller, who was a senior producer for Treyarch at the time, the game development time was 8 months. Which is, if you think about it, even back then, that feels short. Because a lot of games back then took about, from what I've gathered, like at least like 12 to 18 months to make, maybe a little bit more. It's not like today where games take forever. It was like they were starting to balloon, but like 8 months for a game like this is crazy. And you think about it now, like I don't think a game, like especially a AAA game that a big publisher is going to like use as like a main holiday title, I don't think they would choose an 8-month developed game. You know what I mean? Or if they would even allow an 8-month developed game for this, So,
right. Well, this was kind of, I don't know if they knew this, but this was kind of a tough year to release anything, because if you think about it, 2006 was like the year of Nintendo. Like if they got to put their flag on 1 year, it was probably that one, because you had Wii Mania going on at the time. That's all anyone could think about or talk about.
Yeah, it was just starting to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was all the anticipation for it, though.
Yeah, because I remember when the DS came out, that was 2004, and that made waves. And I was so pissed at the time, because I was a big GBA guy, and I felt like Nintendo was abandoning this like really good handheld for another one. Which I mean,
they did move on pretty fast.
I mean, to Nintendo's credit, they were still making like big GBA games up until like 2007, 2008. So, it took a while. And also the DS had a GBA slot, so they're like, oh, we could still make games for it. Like things like Minish Cap came out later. So, but at the time I didn't understand that. I would just see and a lot of the early DS titles didn't impress me. Like Feel the Magic never did it for me. It took the DS. To me, it didn't really kick off until the DS Lite came out in like 2008. Well, that's when the DS really kicked into gear. But yeah, I remember the Wii being a real hype machine with all those commercials, the famous We Would Like to Play. I think those are around before the console came out. And everyone
definitely were.
and seeing the motion controls and everything, people were really, really excited for it. I remember, and I wanted one, but I'm sure you remember it was like a good 2 years you couldn't find one anywhere. Like they would just sell out as soon as they hit the store shelves. Sorry. So
No, yeah, I don't think we got one until 2007. I want to say.
yeah, I got mine in like '09, and by that time I didn't give a shit.
Oh yeah,
like I
that was like
completely, I was just like, I got it for Christmas one year, and I was just like, oh, eh. But to my,
I had the opposite where we got the 360 first.
yeah,
and
I did
was just
too.
like super indifferent. I was like, I don't care about this console. I'm really excited for the Wii. And then slowly but surely, because it took me a couple games, and I was like, oh, the Wii kind of sucks. I'm gonna go play the Xbox. Or really, at that age, I'm gonna go play RuneScape, but also I'm gonna go play the Xbox.
Yeah. I got my 360. I think it was late 2006 for like Christmas '06 because I got SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 with it, and I was so fucking hyped. That's still a great game, actually. So I was like, right there at the start of 360, played that thing till it died, and then after it died is when I got the Wii, and I was kind of bummed because I just didn't care, because that was really the beginning of people not giving a shit about Nintendo. It was like the second half of the Wii, all the way through the Wii U era, like right up to the launch of the Switch. Like that was the era where most people didn't give a fuck about Nintendo.
Yeah, somewhere in '08, the sheen wore off on the Wii.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, this is every game's going to have motion controls, not just some of them? Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah, I think it's just because it was a one-trick pony, and a lot of devs just didn't really know what to do with it. There are some great games that use it well, and Call of Duty 3 is not one of them. But
right, or World at War.
Yeah, or World at War for that matter. Yeah, because Call of Duty 3 released November 7th, 2006 for the PS2, Xbox, and the Xbox 360. But then a week later, it released for the PS3 and the Wii, because both were coming out around the same time, and COD was right there for the launch of those consoles. And I remember seeing the Wii version of Call of Duty 3 and being like, oh, a first-person shooter, that makes sense. But I never played this on Wii. The most I've seen is like Scott the Woz do his little retrospective on the Wii Call of Duties, and he says like 3 has a really terrible control scheme.
I believe that.
Yeah. And it was just like, I mean, it just kind of is exemplary of Call of Duty 3 being, that weird kind of mid-period title where it should be like showcasing the next-gen consoles, but it's still holding back for the old gen. Because this game is
They
running...
made this for too many systems.
Yes, which is why it didn't get a PC port at the time. And it's the only mainline Call of Duty to not have a PC port. And I looked into like why it doesn't, to see if there was anybody who was asked this and got an answer, or like a specific answer for it. And the most I could figure out, just kind of parsing everything, was just a short dev cycle, and they were probably just focusing on the consoles because they were probably seeing like Call of Duty 2 and Big Red 1 like getting really good sales. So they're like, we should just focus on the consoles. Maybe we'll get to PC later. We'll see. And then they never did, which I think bit them in the ass now, because if you go to Steam, every COD is there except 3 as far as the mainline number entries. So, and yeah, that's the only thing I could gather is why there's no PC port. But also I think the tech holding it back is more due to it runs on the same engine that Big Red 1 runs on, the in-house Treyarch NGL engine. And if you play this game like right after Big Red 1 like I did, the comparisons are incredibly obvious, I think. Like playing this,
I remember thinking that back then.
Did you play Big Red 1 back then?
So one of the two of these, we rented one and got the other because, our mom was not going to buy that many Call of Duty games for us.
Yeah, fair.
We definitely had both of them, though, at some points. And I remember thinking, like, neither one of these games felt that different from Call of Duty 2 to me. Mm-hmm. And they certainly didn't feel that different from each other.
Yeah. I think with 3, you can definitely tell with the controls, they made them closer. Well, they just exactly copied what Infinity Ward did with 2, because Big Red 1's control scheme is much more akin to like Finest Hour or like the Medal of Honor games back then, where they still weren't 100% sure where everything should go on the controller. But with Call of Duty 2, it feels like if you play that now, you're like, oh yeah, everything is where you think it is, like the bumpers, the grenade, X is reload, Y is switch the weapon. Like that hasn't really changed much these days. And 3, I think they were just like, oh, we'll just copy that control scheme because that's what people know and that's what people, I think, prefer. But despite all of that, when it came out, I mean, it got pretty good reviews. Looking at the Metacritic for it, it kind of ranges depending on the system because, the Wii version nobody really liked. It sits at
you can't count that.
No, it sits at like the Wii version sits at a 69, but
nice.
the highest rated one is the original Xbox at an 83. And then
That's surprising.
Surprising.
Not the 360 version.
The 360 version, I think, was like an 81 or something like that.
Oh,
like
close enough. Okay.
It's very close. Yeah, it was like low
I feel like
80s,
back
high
then,
70s at the time.
Like in the same way that like the generation before, all the multi-plat games were made with PS2 in mind, and you could tell because they looked bad.
Yeah.
This was definitely the generation where all the games were made with the 360 in mind. So
yes,
you would assume it does pretty well there. And back to the control scheme really a bit, I will say it was smart of Treyarch to do this because at this time, like, devs were still sometimes changing up the control scheme of their entries from game to game. So it was kind of smart to stick with the same thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a time where control schemes hadn't become homogenized like they are now. Which in some ways I think it's probably better that controls are homogenized because it's easier to like pick up and play games now where it's like, oh yeah, here like this button does this thing because we've been making games for decades and it makes sense for this thing to do the thing. But also I just think people like to bitch about how things were better back when I was a kid and I didn't know any better.
Right. Well, I mean, it is nice because Nintendo does not do that. Like I'm playing Donkey Kong Bonanza right now.
Yeah.
And some of the inputs, like they're different enough from other platformers that I'm like, wait, I didn't mean to do that. Oops, I just fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm. Though it's hard, I couldn't imagine Bonanza would have like Mario Odyssey controls because I think they're like different enough.
No, it
right?
doesn't. No, it's totally different. That's what gets me is what the right and left triggers do. It's just different than what I imagine they're going to do, and it gets me every time.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. But yeah, I looked. The 360 version got an 82, so fairly close.
There you go. Yeah.
And then apparently by November of 2013, Call of Duty 3 had sold over 7 million copies.
Which is less than both 2 and 4, is it not?
Apparently it did more than 2. 2,
okay.
All I could find with 2 is that it did a little over 5. But by the time you get to Call of Duty 4, it sold like 16.
Well, I remember
but
reading
4 was
that
like
COD 3 sold worse, but that might have just been in the first year.
Wait, what was that?
I remember reading that Call of Duty 3 sold worse than 2, but that might have just been comparing first years.
It might have been like at the time, because I think Call of Duty 2 got a big boost being a launch title for the 360, and like everybody gravitated towards that because the rest of the lineup honestly didn't look that great.
No.
And then by the time you get to 2006, like the 360 had been out for a year. I think it was Gears 1 out by that point? I think it was.
I think so. You also had Oblivion that year.
Yeah, Oblivion was also that year. So there was definitely a lot more stuff to play. And like despite the positive reviews, I think by 2006, most people were like really sick of the World War II shooters.
Totally. There's so many of them.
Yeah, like even by like reviews I had seen for like 1 and 2, by that point people were just like, oh, another World War II shooter, la-di-da. But yeah, I could imagine like I'm sure critics are probably sick of them at that point because they play a lot of games. But I could definitely tell in 2006, like the casual audience was definitely feeling that fatigue because Medal of Honor was starting to slump. I mean, it had already been slumping in quality for a little bit, but I think
this is definitely the year where Call of Duty overtook them.
Yeah, for sure. But you also had, what was it, like Brothers in Arms? I think was around here at this point.
You had Battlefield already.
Yeah, Battlefield was out, but I think they wasn't Battlefield 2 out by this point, and that was like Modern Warfare or like Modern Combat or whatever. I think so.
I'm looking it up. Yeah, you're right. 2005.
Okay, yeah, I remember playing on the 360 as well.
Yes.
Yeah. You had those. And as I'd mentioned with like Tom Clancy, like Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon were starting to happen. I think Advanced Warfighter was already out at that point as well, and that was a big game for me.
Let me ask you this while we're here, because
Yeah.
I don't think you've addressed this since the first episode, but why do you think it is that this World War II genre became so popular for a while? Because at first I wanted to blame 9/11, but when you think about it, both the run of like World War II movies and World War II games actually started in the late 90s, not 2001.
Well, I thought I had addressed it, and that was, or no, I think I addressed it in my when I wrote my blog on Medal of Honor, because if you remember, I think it was like '98 was when Saving Private Ryan came out, and
Right.
that was a big movie, big deal.
That
And
kicked
then,
all this off for sure.
yes, because Spielberg, while he was making Saving Private Ryan, he wanted to do a video game adaptation, like a historical World War II shooter, because he thought that it would garner a whole new audience, and with like who would want to engage with history by playing a video game. He wanted to use like Medal
He
of
was right.
Honor as sort of like an educational tool. Because if you play the original Medal of Honor, there's surprising, like it tries to be historically accurate to a certain degree. And like DreamWorks made it, which was the studio that he found, which eventually EA bought up.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's really where it all started, was Saving Private Ryan.
I feel like both games tried to be historical to some degree.
Yeah, Underground, it gets a little bit more silly near the end of the game, but yeah, you can tell like they wanted to go the historical route, probably because Spielberg saw the potential of first-person shooters with like Doom and Quake and everything, but it was all like sci-fi wacky shit, and he's like, well, why don't we try like a World War II thing? And Medal of Honor, when that came out, I think it was like 98, 99 on the PS1, that blew up and was a big deal. And that's what caused the World War II shooter boom. So think about it. It started in 99, and now we're in 2006 with Call of Duty 3. So we've had like 7 straight years of these. And there's really only so many ways you can kind of retell that same story, especially when, from what I remember, a lot of them didn't do that much different stuff. It was always like you landing in France and shooting a bunch of Nazis. Like I remember at the time thinking they should do more games on the Japanese, like the Pacific Front. I mean, there was Rising Sun, and then later Call of Duty World at War would touch it, but for the most part, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of those.
I actually have a funny anecdote about that. So I'm a kid, right? And I asked my mom, actually, I said, why is it that all these games have you fighting Nazis, but not Japanese people? And my mom basically said that, and I mean, I'm sure she said this to like a 12-year-old or 13-year-old's level, but it was basically like, we as a society or a world have decided that like the Nazis were evil, and Germany doesn't identify with that. But because we've done so much like racist characterization of Japanese people, they're probably afraid to touch that in the video game. And that seems plausible.
Yeah, I could see that, where it would like, yeah, if you look into like what we did to Japanese Americans with the internment camps, yeah, maybe there was a element of shame attached to that. Yeah, I could see that for sure. And also, I was gonna make another point. I can't remember. Anyways, but I think that's a fair point to make with the Japanese stuff. And also, I think what I was thinking was maybe these games also, they were thinking, oh, we want to try to sell these to like, the Japanese market, and maybe like in Japan, if they released a World War II shooter where it's like, oh, you're just shooting a bunch of those evil imperialist Japanese, maybe the country wouldn't like that, and maybe it wouldn't do well.
I could see that, although I can't imagine these games have ever sold well in Japan.
I wouldn't be surprised. They probably haven't done huge numbers, but I would not be surprised if like Call of Duty had a decent cult following in Japan. Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Well, everything has a cult following in Japan.
Oh, yes. And then things that are cult followings in Japan are big here. I wonder how that works. But anyways.
Circle of life.
Exactly, the circle of life. So yeah, like even though it did really well, sold well, people seem to like it. If you look at like modern retrospectives these days, people put COD 3 like pretty low on the list, comparing them all. Would you do the same if you were to think about it? Yeah,
totally.
I probably would too. Even though I don't think it's a bad game, by any means. And in some ways, it's, I don't want to say underrated, but maybe a little bit overlooked. It does some
I
things.
think Big Red 1 is underrated.
Big Red 1, yes. I think Big Red 1 is a more consistent game than 3. But I applaud 3 for being ambitious in a lot of ways. Maybe not necessarily with the plot, but more with certain like missions and kind of the gameplay structure. You can definitely tell Treyarch are like, we can't just do Big Red 1 again. We have to like add more to it. And also I think they wanted to like kind of stand out so they wouldn't just be perceived as the B team to Infinity Ward. And they would
right.
They would shed that identity in a few years, but
very soon.
Yeah. But we're not there yet. So I guess before we get Oh, no, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, there are some, you can tell that they are trying to get to where Call of Duty was going, because this is like the first game where there is like some rudimentary cover shooting. Like, you can't just Leroy Jenkins your way through the map. And
to a degree.
Right. And there's also a lot more vehicle segments, both of which you'll see a lot more in future COD games.
Yes. You can tell that Treyarch really liked the vehicles.
Too much in this game.
A little bit, yeah. But yeah, why don't we go ahead and get into the plot of this game, shall we?
Oh boy.
Oh boy, indeed. So, the plot of this game, it takes place entirely in France over the course of 88 days, as the Allies try to close what is called they call it the Felice Gap, but I think historically it's known as the Felice Pocket, and it was part of Operation Overlord in order to establish a stronghold in France over the Nazis. So the idea was that you would have like the Americans, the British, and then also the Canadian and the Polish, which are new for this game, basically try to lure the Germans into like circling them basically so that they could establish a stronghold. It's a little bit similar to what the Russians did in Stalingrad in order to stop the invasion of them there. It's just they would circle the German army. And yeah, we follow 4 different armies as they, we do that. So as I said, we have the aforementioned Americans and British like always. But this time, we get the Canadian and the Polish forces added in, which are interesting choices. I can't recall if they're used ever again after this.
I don't think so. Have you ever played a game that features either Canadians or Polish people? I can't think of one. In a World War II setting.
I'll say in a World War II setting, no, I can't, because it's usually just Americans, British, and the Soviets.
I bet that killed in Poland, though, because they probably feel... Poland famously never really surrendered in World War II, so they got that going for them.
Yeah, that is true. Though they did get taken fairly quickly, but anybody would.
They did
under those circumstances, right?
And then they got invaded again.
Yeah, poor bastards. So, anyways, we'll get started with the American front. We play as Private Nichols of the 29th Infantry Division as they capture St. Lo, and as they do that, they get folded into the 90th Infantry Division, and then they fight through France in order to capture Chambois in order to close the gap later in. That's just kind of a big summary. And this group of characters we have Sergeant Frank McCullen, Private First Class Salvador Guzzo. Those are like the 2 guys who like have issues with each other at the start of it. Because really the plot, I think, throughout the entire game, it's interesting to see what Treyarch is trying to do. They're trying to kind of continue what they had sort of done with Big Red 1 in focusing more on the interpersonal conflict, despite doing the thing that the previous games did, where it's like, oh, all these different factions, and it gets a little hard to keep track of everything as you go. You can tell Treyarch was trying to have more sort of character building here, because Big Red 1 has really good character development throughout it. But I just don't think the plot here is as strong as that, because I think Big Red 1 tries to focus on the camaraderie between everybody in the 1st Infantry Division. But a theme in Call of Duty 3, for me, seems to be just like all of these factions just constantly fighting with each other. Like, it seems to be like a plot point where it's like, oh, we should do this. Oh, I don't think we should do this. What do you mean? And then they, develop a thing. And it's like, guys, we got to go, shoot the Nazis. Can we, not fight right now? And the Americans are kind of the purest example of that, because if I remember, Private First Class Guzzo, he gets added into our little group because he was in the 90th Infantry Division, but then when the 29th get added into it, he becomes part of our group, and then he develops the little issue with McCullen, because I guess they just, Guzzo doesn't mince words. He always likes to speak up when he has, disagreements.
There'll be rubble inside of 2 minutes! We can't stay here!
Wait a minute. God damn it. Where is everybody?
Sound off! Ah, screw that! We have to fall back! Now that's it! I'm falling back! Frank, put the gun down. Let's just all calm down here. You're not crazy enough to shoot me!
Desertion's a capital offense, Guzzo! Shooting you won't be crazy. It'll be the sanest thing I've ever done.
But then McCullen, at a certain point, if you remember, he there's that one level where it's out of nowhere he just becomes shell shocked or PTSD, where they're like, Sergeant, what should we do next? And he's just staring off into space, and they're like, oh fuck, we lost him or whatever. I think in World War II they had I think it was called battle fatigue at this point.
Yeah, they probably, I think shell shock was already a term.
Shell shocked, I believe, started in World War I. And then by World War II, they called it battle fatigue. They didn't call it PTSD until I think it was after Nam, after Vietnam, I think.
That sounds right.
Yeah, but anyways, McCullen, he develops PTSD, and they're just like, oh, fuck, what, we got to figure this out. But eventually he kind of snaps to it, because it's the end of, I think it's Chapter 4, when you have to defuse all those bombs on the bridge, and your engineer gets shot and killed, but then Sergeant's like, oh, I was an engineer before, so I'll do it. And they're just like, okay, I guess. And then they cover them as they go over the bridge to take care of that. And it's a pretty, I think it's a fairly well done emotional scene, because at the very end, McCullen blows up, or he gets caught in an explosion, and then
press F to pay respects.
That's a later game in the series. But as he's being cradled by, I think it's Corporal Dixon. I love what he says to, I'm assuming it's Dixon, where he basically just says,
Tell Guzzo. Tell him to go to hell.
That is some hate for a man. But then Dixon then he gets promoted to being a sergeant. And then he's leading you through the forest and the trenches and everything. And then Guzzo starts developing issues with him. What the fuck, man? You can't just get along with everybody. But also Dixon eventually gets killed later on. And then as he's dying, Guzzo is cradling him. And then he says, oh,
Dix! McCullen.
Forget him, Dix.
McCullen told me to tell you.
You're not dying like him.
He told me to tell you. You should go to hell.
Stay with me,
But you're okay, Guzzo.
Dix.
You're okay.
Come on, buddy. God damn it.
The world's greatest game of telephone.
I know, right? But then Guzzo gets command of the squad for the very end. And it sort of culminates in this little bit, because when you're doing the training section for the American campaign, before you do the first battle, with the church and everything, Sergeant, he's giving you the little pep talk on the truck and everything. Guzzo basically repeats that verbatim with the next set of troops that he commands. So I think it tries to have this thing of like, oh, Guzzo, he kind of struggles with authority, but then once he has authority, he sort of gains a newfound respect for them. Maybe? What would be your take on it?
I think my take is that they watched Band of Brothers and took some of the wrong lessons from that. But I thought that the sergeant's relationship to his soldiers was like interesting, I guess. But I didn't really vibe with any of these guys.
Yeah.
I kept through every cutscene. I was just like, I probably thought this was really cool when I was 11, but this is really stupid now.
Yeah. I get what you mean by the Band of Brothers thing, because Big Red 1 is very Band of Brothers influenced. Even a lot of the cast of Band of Brothers actually did voices for the characters in that game. And they probably...
That's a fun fact.
Yeah, and they were probably trying, as you said, to carry some of that over, but it just doesn't hit the same way. If anything, it might just come down to like the rush production. They didn't really have time to focus on the characters probably in the same way, especially when you're trying to write like 4 different factions of characters. Like, just to me, the American section comes off as one of the lesser ones, I'd say. Like, it's clearly the central one because, it's being made for, an American audience. But I don't know. I find like the other 3 to be at the very least more interesting because I think they
maybe plot wise, but
yeah.
I thought that the gameplay was tightest here, personally.
Oh, I would probably agree with that. But that could be also because they have the most levels.
That's true.
Yeah, so they probably just focus the most on those to make sure that they're good. Like that opening section, like the church when you're fighting with like the big church and everything, is a really good section. And then, like in the forest when you get the sniper rifle, I quite like that bit as well. But I don't know. I just thought other areas of the game were a little bit more memorable for me. But we'll move on to the next one, which is the British side. So for the Brits, we are Sergeant James Doyle, who was also a character in United Offensive, which was the expansion for Call of Duty 1. I didn't know that until I researched this episode. And we're in the British SAS.
The one guy who noticed that in 2006 is like the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Call of Duty fandom, for teaching me that. But yeah, we're a member of the British SAS, and we're being driven in an airfield, by Corporal Duncan Keith, who is a Scottish man, and who's definitely one of the more interesting characters in the game. You can tell the dev team really liked him because they give him a lot to work with, I think, compared to everybody else. And he drives us up to a Major Gerald Tiberius Ingram, who was also in United Offensive. And in fact, when you meet him and he's like, shaking your hand and everything, he does the whole like, hey, remember, blah, 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 blah. And it's referencing that expansion. So credit to Treyarch for going deep with that one. So your mission is you are airdropping into France to join the French Marquis resistance in order to like help their fight from within. And you airdrop in. You're supposed to airdrop in with 2 jeeps named Vera and Lynn, because of course they named their jeeps, right? They're British. So you're on the plane, and then the plane gets hit, and they're like, "Oh, we got to drop early." And so you drop early, and you're completely like scattered from everybody. But you run into some of the members of the French resistance, and then you all meet up in a barn. You meet up with Keith, and you're like, "Oh, we got to go find the jeeps." And so you go find the jeeps. Finding Vera, and then from there, you meet up with more members. You start attacking Flak 88s, which is such a common thread in these World War II Call of Duty games. They always want you to blow up a Flak 88. It's just an easy, I guess, objective device.
It's always that, and then fighting off like a trash mob of Nazis later on.
Oh, absolutely. They
always happens.
Yeah, they don't stop coming. You attack like fuel depots. There's one mission in the British section where you like the whole thing takes place in a factory fuel plant area that I thought was like one of my more favorite levels in the game. And then it gets to a point where Ingram gets caught in an explosion and he's presumed dead by the French resistance, but Keith is like dead set. He's like, no, he's out there. I'm gonna go find him. And then that's where the tension starts. I mean, there was already tension there because Keith is given the French shit for, being like, oh, surrender monkeys and all that shit.
That's where the Frenchie joke comes from.
Yeah, even though I could be incorrect on this, but I think the French have the highest winning percentage of wars. Like, I think they've won the most.
Well, I mean, the reputation comes entirely from World War II. I also think
Yeah.
it's more of an American thing. I'm not sure that it's shared globally exactly, but
You're probably right
I
on
do
that.
know that. I know that before World War II, historically, most people did not expect France to collapse as quickly as it did, especially since in World War One,
Yeah.
they were pushed to the brink and never fell apart.
Yeah, it could have just been that, like, Hitler's blitzkrieg tactics were just so good that it completely fumbled the French.
It was some of that, and the French society was just extremely divided at that time, much like our own.
Yeah. Well, France is always in turmoil. Their government changes like every 20 years, which in some ways I respect the audacity of the citizens to be like, fuck this, we want to change it, and then they throw like furniture through politicians' houses. I'm like, I respect that. We should have more of that.
If you want a fun fact, though, both France and Britain did not take nearly as many casualties in this war as they do in World War One.
I believe that, because World War One, I mean, Americans weren't really in it until like the last 6 months, I think. And just World War One is like the dumbest war ever fought in history, which is saying something. It was just a complete shit show across like the entire front for everybody. Like, it was just a complete disaster, I think.
It's pretty bad, but yeah, most countries though, like Germany, has about the same treatment in both wars in terms of like a percentage of their population.
Yeah.
But then you go to like the USSR and China, and the casualty rates are astonishing compared to World War One, where Russia did participate, but China didn't.
Yeah. Well, I think at that time China was probably the revolution didn't happen yet. It was probably like when they were getting invaded by Japan. And like all that.
I think so.
Yeah.
At least one of those happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah. Because I think the revolution was after World War II, I believe. But anyway.
That's right. I think 49 maybe.
Yeah, 48, 49. But anyways, so yeah, like Ingram gets caught. He's presumed dead. But Keith is like, no, we're gonna go find him. Like, Doyle's gonna help me. We're gonna go find him.
Gear up, Doyle. We're going back in.
Then 3 of you will be dead.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Cela signifie que votre commandant est
Speak bloody English, for Christ's sake!
And then you guys kind of go off on your own. But as you do, more members of the French resistance actually end up joining you, because you come upon like a little village where some Nazis are holding some French prisoners. So they're like, oh, we'll help you because, if he's anywhere, he's here, right? And so you end up finding Ingram, and you end up finding a bunch of other French prisoners. And this is the mission, I think, where you get in the Jeep and you like drive. It's like almost like, I don't know, it's like almost open-ended, this mission, where you're like in the Jeep and you're constantly driving to like certain parts of the village to like go into a house and save one guy, and you kind of go back and forth, and it becomes a little much, I think. And at the very end, you're, fighting off another swarm of Nazis, and then an armored car comes in, and then you and Isabel, who is the only female member of the resistance that's helping you out, you and her, flank the armored car and blow it up. But as you do, she gets caught in the explosion and dies. And they treat it like this kind of emotional moment, but I feel like they didn't really do anything with
barely
her
know her.
character. Yeah, because they just
They just didn't want to be woke. They had to fight the woke accusations.
the woke accusation in 2006. Yeah, they kill the one woman. And then that's kind of it. And then at the very end, Keith just does the whole like, oh, I now have a little bit more respect for you, Frenchie, and like shakes his hand, and then that's it, kind of a thing. I think. Kissed. Oh yeah, they absolutely kissed. It's France after all.
That's not. It's not the only tension that was there. There was
exactly.
Sexual tension.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're fighting in a war, of course, right? Overall, I like this section more than the Americans. I think it's just because I do like Corporal Keith as a character. like his voice actor, I think, does a pretty good job with it, and they try to give him some character moments to work with. It's still nothing like incredible or anything, but I feel like there was a little bit more effort put into it than, say, the American one.
That could be. I mean, I think they tried with both. Unfortunately, I found all these things to be. I could not tell you who any of these people are from Adam, and I played both of these campaigns.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, like, we don't really have any like iconic characters or like really any like of the storytelling that would happen later. So it was just that era where they were more focused on like, oh, isn't it cool that we're like in World War II doing all this stuff? And it's like, I mean, yeah, but I think by this time people were wanting more like story in their like shooter games, man. So
yeah, I'd rather shoot up a Russian airport.
No Russian. Anyways, so we'll move on to the Canadian campaign. Speaking of Frenchies, well, half Frenchies. The Canadian campaign, we play as Private John Cole of the 4th Canadian Armored Division. The armor is with a U. And your leader is Lieutenant Jean-Guy Robichaud. I don't know if I said that right. And I guess his whole character bit is that he's like scatterbrained and like kind of like a disorganized kind of a dude, because he puts his squad into like, he's a World War I vet, but he often like just kind of throws you guys into like weird situations. Like that one like mission where you're in the factory and it's like, you know, oh, we're going to take over this factory. Oh, there's like 1 million Nazis here. And then you like take care of them all, but then like tanks start appearing in like every corner and like you guys just manage to get out of it. You know, and you can tell like he's not fully I think he like wants to be more of a leader. Like he kind of tries to give them more orders than he's given, but I'm not quite sure. But you guys are able to survive. And then there's tension again. Ooh. With a guy named Private Leslie Barron, because Jean, I'm just going to say Jean, views Barron as a coward, as a guy who doesn't want to participate in fighting. And that you know, they fight over that, and Barron's like, I'm not a coward, you know. But Jean just keeps like berating him and like shit talking him. It's really weird, I think. But again, I think they're just trying to give you something in between the fighting, I guess.
Word from command. The Poles have taken Hill 262, but they lost the radio operator.
We got bigger problems than that, Private.
This adds to them, sir. Command wants us to send a radio operator to help the Poles.
Well, then get going.
Sir!
What are you waiting for? Mont-Ormel is at least a day's drive away. Oh, Perron, do you a favor. One of our tank crew has gone missing. We're going off on a rescue. Oh, that's dangerous business. You wouldn't want any part of it.
I'm not a coward, Lieutenant. My job's to protect our radio, our only link to command and...
Now your job is to be the Poles radio. Dismiss, Private.
But eventually, Jean reassigns Baron to be a radio operator for the Polish. And he actually ends up getting killed in that campaign, but I'll discuss that when we get there. But after that, you save a captured Canadian tank crew, but you get ambushed by a King Tiger, which you try to throw some C4 on to blow up the tank. In this game's way of attaching C4, which I'll get to that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But when you put the charge on, it fails to blow up the tank. So Sergeant Callard, who's in your squad, he ends up sacrificing himself to make sure he can trigger the explosion, which everyone gets sad about for this guy that whatever, right? You end up getting promoted to corporal, and Callard ends up getting nominated for the Victorian Cross. But then after that, you end up meeting with the Polish to help them defend Hill 262, which leads into the Polish campaign. The Canadians, they really don't do much with them. They're just kind of here. Again, they tried to do the tension thing, but you only really have that like one big mission with them, maybe 2 missions before they get folded into the Polish division. So There's really not much to say. I mean, they don't even get. I mean, I don't think the Canadians had any unique weapons during the war because you just use a Bren with him and a Lee Enfield, British weapons, which is, I mean, fine. I think they were still part of Britain at that point. So it's just another kind of whatever thing, right?
Well, it's hard to know because, the UK was still such a manufacturing powerhouse that they may not have wanted any Canadian weapons. Who knows?
It's possible. Or, maybe Treyarch just didn't have time to research any unique Canadian weapons and throw them in the game.
Yeah, too, like war crimes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can tell, or at least I could tell, that some of the weapons you get in the campaign that aren't in the multiplayer, you can tell they didn't get as much time in development as some of the other weapons, because like the Bren especially looks kind of like rushed, like it doesn't have the same definition in it compared to, say, the M1 Garand or the Thompson or even the Bar. So, but I noticed that. I don't know if you did.
I didn't really know, but I'll be honest with you, this is about where I stopped playing.
Okay, fair enough. So then I'll round it out with... Oh, go ahead.
We haven't talked about this yet, but this game is really glitchy on PS3. It's like painful to play towards the end.
Yeah, I had some bugs on Xbox as well, but I'll round out the story and then we'll get to that. So we'll round it out with the Polish campaign. We play as Corporal Bohater Wojciech. I probably butchered that. I'm very sorry. Oh, but a friend of mine, he told me that Bohater is Polish for hero. And he was trying to tell me that, like, oh, that's just a nickname. That's not his real name. And I'm like, from what I gather, they just, like, that's his first name. So I don't know. If I'm wrong, let me know. But he is part of the Polish 1st Armored Division. So this is the obligatory tank missions. They give you, like, a whole Polish tank group to do these missions with, which is actually, like, kind of neat. And I actually like these guys. The couple of cutscenes you have where they're just kind of, like, hanging out or whatever on the tank, I liked they had the camaraderie that I think was missing from the other three. It reminded me a little bit more of Big Red 1, and even to some degree, like Battlefield Bad Company. It just kind of had that vibe, like kind of that lighthearted, jokey thing, like during a war, which is what Bad Company is trying to do. And then the rest of your guys within the tank are Major Stan Papa Jack Jackowitz, Corporal Joachim Lucky Rudd Rudinsky, Sergeant Lucas Bang Boom Kowalski, and Private Marek Ulan. I probably said those all wrong. I'm sorry. I'm white, but I'm not Polish.
Polish is a rough language.
It is, and as far as I know, I have no Polish blood in me, but I do like Polish sausage. Your mission is to take out somebody by the name of the Black Baron, which is the term they give for like a super tank, basically. It's similar to the King Tiger that you blow up in the Canadian campaign. It's a little similar, but I guess they have some kind of vendetta with him because they imply that earlier. And it's basically like your obligatory tank mission where you are like rolling in the countryside, blowing up as many tanks and Panzerschrecks as you can, and then you eventually end up in a small little village and you kind of chase him around it until you kind of corner him and blow him up. And it's actually like a really fun tank mission.
Look at the tank! It's Richter's number!
This is the one. The Schwiniak who drove us from the motherland.
Papa, I thought you'd be happier. Who says I'm not?
Treyarch did a really good job with the tank missions in Big Red 1, and it kind of carries over in 3. Like, they control really well. The third-person camera view, I think, is the correct one for a tank mission. And it doesn't overstay its welcome, because you get this, and then I think you get one more shortly after that, but your tank eventually blows up, and then you have to go back on foot, because that's when you arrive at Hill 262, where you get attacked by the German soldiers who are trying to escape from the Felice pocket. So, that's why they're there. And your tank gets blown up. And then during the attack, Kowalski gets killed by a tank shell, and the aforementioned Baron gets murdered trying to radio in artillery when he refuses to retreat. So at this point, Baron becomes part of the Polish squad that you're in. And then he's trying to fight those like, I'm not a coward thing. So, as he tries to radio in that artillery, he ends up getting killed because they tell him to get out of there, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to get out of there." So unfortunately,
What a man!
Yeah, what a man. But Ulan is able to grab the radio, and then he's able to call in the strikes. But later, Rudinsky gets killed by a second tank shell. So at the end, it's just Papa Jack, Ulan, and then you, Bahater. You have to fend off the rest of the Germans. And again, it's a pretty well done section. You end up getting saved by the Canadian Air Force when they bomb all the Germans, which is forcing them into Chambois, which is where the Americans are, and that leads into the final section with the Americans. And that's a rough summation of the plot. Again, you can tell they wanted to do something a little bit. They wanted to do something a little bit more interesting, to where it wasn't just like, oh, here are the Americans doing their thing, the Brits doing their thing, the Soviets doing their thing. They kind of wanted it to be this big story where everybody was sort of reacting to what they were doing. And I respect that ambition, but like, again, if it had more time to cook, I think it could have been better. I think it could have worked out better. Like, there could have been a really cool section, say near the end, where like all four squads meet up, and then they have to like fend off the rest of the Germans. Like, that would have been kind of cool, but my guess is just a lack of time.
Maybe it's for the best that it didn't work out, though, because the direction that COD's going to go in is going to be a lot better for the franchise. And if this had been like a smash hit, they might have stuck with the World War II genre too long, like Medal of Honor does.
It's possible, yeah. But I think because Infinity Ward was so dead set on wanting to do a Modern Warfare and not a World War II, that's why the series kind of goes in that direction. So I can get more into it when I do the Modern Warfare episode, but apparently Infinity Ward wanted to do Modern Warfare for COD 2. Like, that early. They just
wow.
Yeah, they were like, fuck this World War II. We want to go do that. And Activision was like, no, it's too risky. Just do another World War II. And Infinity Ward was like, okay, we'll do another one, but the next one is going to be a Modern Warfare. And Activision kind of gritted their teeth and just said, okay, because COD 2 was another big hit for them. So they went off and did that for 2 years, and then this was sort of the kind of fill in the gap one because of that. So unfortunately, yeah, this game does feel like a fill in the gap type of thing. But yeah, I think we can get more into like gameplay and all that stuff. So what were your what did you like about this game most of all? Like, what were your highlights?
So it's been a long time since I've really played any of these games. Like, I probably had not touched COD 3 since like 2007 maybe. It was fun going back. I'd forgotten what these games were like, with all the cheesy dialogue and the quotes when you die and all that stuff. What was I going to say? The gameplay, I'll put it like this. I remember when I was playing this game in real time, I noticed that there was a pretty big gameplay shift between COD 2 and COD 3. And at the time, I didn't know that Big Red 1 was the same. Like, I wasn't paying attention to like video game studios back then, right? So I didn't know that like Treyarch had made some games and Infinity Ward made some others. And I just remember thinking that COD 3 was a lot harder, but what it really was they were introducing cover shooting. Like, you actually needed to take cover. Like, aiming was better than in COD 2, and therefore you really can't just like run around shooting wherever you want anymore. At least that was my experience.
I would agree with that.
When I was 12.
No, I would agree with that, because it definitely feels like you can tell from playing this game that Treyarch have the talent to make this work, but they're not 100% sure on where they want to go with it. Like, I think when I was playing this game, I couldn't help but think it feels like it's trying to be more like a Battlefield, with the heavy emphasis on the vehicles and like some more kind of large scale combat sections, especially in like the multiplayer, which we can touch upon later. It definitely feels like they were looking at what Battlefield had done and thought, oh, maybe we could try throwing some of that stuff in there. But yeah, like, this game is not a run around and just like murder everybody kind of a thing like Call of Duty 2 or even like Call of Duty 4 would end up being. And in some ways, I think that's a good thing. It gives the game a unique identity. But also, I think when you look at the series as a whole, it just kind of makes it stick out a little bit more, unfortunately. But there are still some like really cool ideas in here. We mentioned like the vehicle sections, because it's not just like the tank stuff. There's also, mainly in the British campaign, you get on the Jeeps and you get to ride. You get to drive the Jeeps. You shoot that turret on it, I think, once. But other than that, you're driving the Jeep around, trying to avoid tanks and all that other kind of stuff. It surprised me. It didn't control that bad. At least I didn't think it did.
No, I don't. I think you're right. I remember that I really enjoyed the segment where you're chasing. I don't think I got this far when I replayed it, but I remember the segment where you're chasing the German general in their private tank or what have you, and I really liked that section as a kid.
Yeah, with the Polish guys, yeah, and especially like they're like shouting things at him too through the tank.
Yep.
Yeah, that stuff was really good. Let's see. Yeah. Controls. I think we both agree. Control wise, it felt fine to me. How did it feel to you?
Oh man, I gotta say, I don't know if it's playing a retro game or if it's because games were definitely not optimized for the PS3 in November 2006. But man, I got stuck all the time in like little patches of grass, and I'd have to like fight my way out of it.
Oh.
And there just was not great. Like there was a lot of FPS drops, so aiming was really hard. Honing in on like soldiers at a distance was pretty difficult. It was a rough experience.
What'd you play it on difficulty wise? You just do normal?
So originally I did. What's the difficulty you have for normal?
It's easy, normal, hard, and veteran.
I did hard.
Okay.
And I had to give that up because it just was not working out.
Yeah.
With the controls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a very enjoyable experience. I think I was reading online and it sounds like it's a PS3 problem.
That's what I would think, because I mean, from like, what was it, like 06 to like 08 or 09, games were not really optimized well for PS3. I think it's just because devs had a hard time with the hardware in general. So they were making for 360 first because it was much easier to make for, and then they were just kind of porting it to PS3 afterwards. But I mean, they eventually caught up though. Like, did you play any CODs on PS3 at the time?
I never owned a PS3, man.
Okay.
Or any PlayStation until PS4. So no.
Okay. Because a buddy of mine
maybe at friends' houses.
Okay, because a buddy of mine had a PS3. I had a 360, and I remember playing like some shooters over at his house on PS3, and yeah, they just felt weird. I don't know if it was because at first they tried to do like L2 and R2 as like the triggers to aim and shoot, but the way that they were designed on PS3, they were like, they just didn't feel right at all. So they just moved it back to L1 and R1, which didn't feel better, but it was like consistent with like PS2 at the time. So they just kind of dealt with it. And yeah, like it wasn't as buggy for me as it was for you, but I played this on the series through backwards compatibility. And for the most part, like from what I gather, it ran at 60. It probably had some drops in there, but it ran perfectly fine as far as I could tell. But yeah, I ran into like occasional bugs, like getting stuck in certain places, like having like soldiers block your way. Like, I don't know if you ever had that where like you're trying to go through like a doorway and there's like a squad mate right there, and he wouldn't move.
Or up the stairs.
Yeah, or up the stairs, and it's like, dude, fucking move, right?
To be fair, though, that's not just a COD problem this era. AI was dumb in a lot of games.
Yeah, it was very dumb. And it's a shame because COD 2 had surprisingly decent AI, especially for a game from like 2005. Like, it wasn't the smartest thing in the world, but it was more like reactive to things that you would do. So like every time you played it, it was maybe a little bit different. But yeah, they didn't have that tech in this game, unfortunately. It never killed me though. I played through the whole game on normal, and yeah, as a kid, I remember it being really difficult. But when I played through it this time, it wasn't that bad. I didn't think it was really that difficult. Now, it could just be that I'm older and, you know, my hand-eye coordination is better. But yeah, it didn't like it wasn't this like big daunting task as I remember it being as a kid. But also I only played it on normal. I imagine if I like bumped it to like veteran, it would be a nightmare, like any Call of Duty on veteran. So.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? To Treyarch's credit, making this for the PS2, the PS3, the Wii, the Xbox, and the Xbox 360, that is 5 very distinct architectures.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy that they did that. I mean, that's like making a game for all of the N64, Sega Saturn,
and the PS1.
That's crazy.
And there was only like, I think we had to talk about that in Discord a while back. I think there was only like 2 or 3 games that did that. And it was like Duke Nukem, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and like maybe something else that were like.
Yeah, it's less than you would think.
Yeah,
you always want to say sports games, but no, not at all.
Yeah. So some were for 2 of them, and yeah, it was a weird time. Though do you think they made this for 360 first and then ported it to everything else?
I would be amazed if they did it if they started anywhere but the 360.
Yeah, because I don't know, maybe just like the 360 version it felt fine to me. But it wasn't amazing by any stretch because I still can't sprint. You can the multiplayer for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Very weird. Apparently in Big Red 1 as well, you can sprint in the multiplayer, but not in the single player, which I don't understand.
I mean, look, man, there's a reason that Big Red 1 and COD 3 both largely have gone forgotten.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, like graphically, what do you think about this game as far as the graphics go?
It looks good for its time. I don't really know that I have a lot to say about it. Do you?
What I noticed is you can definitely tell it's not on the IW engine, which is what most COD games are on, starting from like COD 2 onwards. Even the Treyarch ones. So it has a different look to it. Like when you play COD 2, like the colors are a little bit more washed out. Everything just looks a bit, I don't know, it just looks more like a PC shooter, I guess. Maybe just the resolution that they're using and the way things kind of move and operate.
This is also still the time where like the year-over-year changes in graphics was pretty stark even within the same console.
Yes. I'm more talking about like the engines, because the Treyarch.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Because like the engine, like the art style that Treyarch uses for 3 as opposed to 2, like it has a different look to it. Like if you compare screenshots of both games, you're like, oh yeah, they're obviously different. Not just in graphical fidelity, but just in like COD 3, like the colors aren't as washed out. It has more like of a wider kind of a color palette. Like kind of more like kind of rounded edges almost. Like it almost like elements of it look more like action figures than real people. Where I think like Infinity Ward were trying to make it look as realistic as they could with what they had. But 3 feels a little bit more exaggerated in that ways. And then they also try to differentiate it with things like those weird melee combat sections and the quick time events with the C4 and everything. I remember the melee sections being like an advertising point at the time, but in the game it only happens like 4 or 5 times maybe, and it's like a big ball of nothing. Like I assume
as all quick time events were back then.
Yeah, it was really the era where they were trying to force it into everything. And
I would have preferred that they had ragdoll physics like Medal of Honor Airborne. I love to just watch some bodies fly across the room.
I did love those. Yeah, this game does not. It kind of has ragdoll, but like.
No, COD always has the like people dying like Halo, where they just die in a spot no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, like those weird. So the melee combat sections I'm referring to, if you're not aware, there will be moments where you're in a building and you'll take like a blind corner, and then you'll get ambushed by like a German soldier, and he like kicks your guns away from you or whatever, and he's holding a rifle,
yeah.
And then you're both like fighting for it, and you're mashing the shoulder
tension
buttons.
Is building.
Oh, so much.
I'm mashing a lot of things.
Yeah, you're mashing the trigger buttons, and then you have to push a face button to like kick them or whatever, and then sometimes it keeps going, sometimes it doesn't. And
I feel like a lot of games did this around this time period. Like had some kind of segment where like a character gets in your face and you gotta mash buttons.
Yeah. I think it was the success of it was like Resident Evil 4 and God of War that like really popularized the quick time events, and every game was like, oh, we gotta have them. I mean, thankfully here, like those sections, as I said, it's like 4 or 5 times, and maybe like it just kind of happens and then it goes away. So it's nothing that crazy. The C4 one I thought was interesting, where when you put, like in COD 2, when they want you to put C4 on something, you just run up to something, hold the X, you plant it, you run away. You're done. Right? Here, it's like, oh, you put the thing on, you push the button to take the primer out, and then you have to twist the stick to screw it in, and then push the button to pull the pin and run away. And that is the definition of unnecessary. Like, you don't need to do that. Like, there was one time I was doing it, and I was getting shot at by soldiers, and I'm like, am I going to die in the middle of this thing? Because I didn't even know if that was possible or not. I didn't, thankfully. But, yeah, that was just really dumb. But it was a very...
It was a choice.
It was a choice, for sure.
Give them props, though, because they were, like you said earlier, they were trying to do a lot of different stuff, plot-wise, gameplay-wise, trying to put this on a bunch of consoles. Like, there's a reason that Call of Duty ends up blowing Halo and Battlefield and Medal of Honor out of the water, and I think it's because they were willing to take risks like this.
Yeah. And in a weird way, it's like Treyarch became, well, also Infinity Ward, but like what I liked is Treyarch and Infinity Ward were pushing the series in different ways. You know, like Infinity Ward was trying to make this like real cutting edge modern military shooter, which is what they would do. And then Treyarch focused more on like storytelling and like still doing the historical shooter for a bit, but putting their own kind of spin on it. And 3 is them putting their own spin on it, but it is that weird... It's that, like, awkward middle school phase where you're not quite there and everything just feels kind of off, right? And then you look back and just go, oh, bless your heart. You know, bless your heart. This is very much a bless your heart kind of game.
Right.
But was there anything else you want to talk about with the campaign before I go into multiplayer?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it all. Now, I didn't, because of what I played this on, I did not have any opportunity to play the multiplayer, although I'm sure I did back in the day.
Okay. So, yeah. So, the multiplayer for basically every backwards compatible Call of Duty game on 360 still has servers up. You can still go play them right now. And I think even on PC, you can still play them. And Call of Duty 3... Not this one. Yeah, well, for me it was, and I was surprised.
There is no PC release for this game, is there? Or do they do?
No, there isn't a PC release. Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, so for this guy, I was surprised when I turned on the multiplayer because I was like, maybe we'll see if I hop into a match or whatever. And just about every time, I would get into a match right away. It was always small, like maybe just a couple people. You know, I don't think I played in a match with more than like 8 or 9 people. But I remember at the time, it was a max of 24 people, which was a big step up from 2, which only had 8. So you could have like 24 people. There was all these different types of game modes, like your deathmatch, team deathmatch, capture the flag. There was something called War, which I think is like a Battlefield thing, but it also reminds me a little bit of Overwatch as well, where you have like the different like spots that like you'll have 2 command points, the enemy will have 2 command points, and then you have to capture the neutral one and try to push them out, right? Like 3 does that. And it has quite a few different maps based on various areas of the game. The one everyone seemed to like was the Eder Dam level, because it has like that big bridge in the center where you can like, you know, drive jeeps over with. And yeah, I was surprised at how people were still playing the multiplayer for this. I guess, you know, every COD has its fans, right?
Yeah, I think any game, if you keep the servers up, people are still going to play. I mean, dude, there's people that are still playing like mid-90s MMOs on private servers, so anything's possible.
I mean, if people still want to play EverQuest, they'll still play Call of Duty 3, right?
Yep, exactly.
And then even if I wasn't able to like get into a match, I would make one. Like make just like a team deathmatch, go hide in a corner for like 2-3 minutes, and somebody would join. Like every time. I don't think I waited more than like 5 minutes for somebody to join the match. And yeah, the multiplayer, I mean, it controls the same as the single player campaign, except you can sprint if you click the stick, which is nice. The maps are all a fairly large size with an emphasis on, having like jeeps and tanks and things like that, so you can do that crazy shit. It's split up into classes because COD 4 is when it would just give you like the loadouts. Here they give you like all the different classes, like rifleman, light assault, heavy assault. And you can only either be the Americans or the Germans. You can't play as the British, Canadian, or the Polish in the multiplayer, which I think.
Bummer. I wanted to play as the Canadians, man, even though they all sound like Nords.
Which is a shame because I really like the Sten in this game when you get it. Like, it feels like a more hefty gun compared to the earlier ones. And it's a shame you can't mess with it in the multiplayer at all because I quite like the Sten here. But you get all your typical American guns from the era, like your M1 Garands, your Thompsons, your Bars, your Springfields, all that good stuff. And then on the German side, your KR98Ks, your MP40s, your MP44s, all that good stuff.
Your gas chambers.
Unfortunately, no, they took those out.
Bummer.
Yeah, but the multiplayer, I mean, it's fine. Again, it's not groundbreaking like we would get later, but it kind of just fits in with the other multiplayers of the time. Again, it reminds me more of Battlefield. Emphasis on like the bigger maps, having vehicles, having like up to 24 players, which on a console shooter was pretty good for the time.
Totally. I feel like this is still the weird in-betweener time where every game felt like they needed both. Every game felt like they needed a co-op mode, right? But then you had the really, not a co-op mode, but like a local multiplayer.
Yes.
But then you also had like the really rudimentary PS2 online services, and then of course Xbox Live comes to its own, but it hasn't yet become like Xbox Live TM like we would soon know it.
It was getting.
So it's kind of
it was
weird in betweener time.
Yeah, it was getting there because if I remember, Xbox Live debuted with the OG Xbox, like 2002 or something like that, like a year or so after.
Something like that.
And Halo was kind of carrying that. And
well,
then
Halo 1 wasn't on Xbox Live.
It was Halo 2.
Yeah, and that didn't come out until 04.
Yeah, but that was really when Xbox Live started to become a thing, and then that carries over into the 360, and Halo 3 wouldn't come out for another couple years, so it was kind of wide open for some games to kind of take hold of Xbox Live, and I think the first Xbox Live game I played was probably Call of Duty 2, but I played a decent amount of COD 3 online at the time, and I remember matches being full of people.
But there was definitely enough people. I just don't think Xbox Live became this thing that like every Xbox owner felt was a mandatory. You need to have this until somewhere around like the Halo 3 launch.
Yes, that's really when it became the big deal that it became. Because I think when I first did Xbox Live, I didn't have the wireless adapter yet. You remember that thing that you plug in with the antenna in the back?
Right.
Yeah, I think I might still have.
You had to have that for
somewhere.
the Xbox, right?
It was for the original. Yeah, the original 360. So what I did, because I didn't have it yet, was I bought like a giant ass Ethernet cable and then just ran that from my Xbox in the family room where the TV was all the way to the router. It was like a 50-foot cable. And still
did people trip over that all the time?
I found a way to hide it to where for the most part nobody ever got in the way of it. I'm still shocked to this day that I was allowed to do that, but then I got the wireless.
You've indulged your parents.
Surprisingly, I think it's because I didn't do anything else. Like this was they're probably it's better him doing this than doing drugs, I guess.
Coke.
So they just dealt with it. But multiplayer was fine. Even still to this day, when I was messing around with it, I was like, this is kind of fun. A lot of the fun with Call of Duty does lie in the multiplayer, I think.
Right.
As the series would get more and more popular, you could tell there was more of a focus on the multiplayer to a detriment of the campaign, which is a shame.
Hey, we got the burp.
Yep, you got it. But it would become a detriment to the campaign, but I don't think we were there yet. Even though this campaign wasn't the greatest, it was still...
Oh, no, we're a ways off from that.
Yeah, it's not the greatest campaign, but I have a feeling there's going to be a campaign later in the series that I'm going to not like. I'll like this one over it. I won't be surprised.
To be fair, I don't think Call of Duty was ever they never had the greatest campaigns of all time.
No.
Not that they were bad, but
There are
I think
some that are really good, though.
The series where you really see the campaign suffer to the detriment of multiplayer is freaking Halo, because Halo 3's campaign is a train wreck, I think.
It hasn't aged super well, I would say. But yeah, I guess, do you have any other final thoughts before we close out?
Man, I don't think so. It was fun to go back to this one because it's one of those games that is very much a moment in time in my life. Like, it's not something anyone ever talked about after it came out, like Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
I played it, and I didn't know it was going to be one of the last of the World War II shooters at the time, but it totally was. And I learned a lot about it. Didn't know that it was on like 6 consoles because in my mind, the only thing that mattered back then was like the 360 and the Wii.
Yeah.
And I always heard the stories about what playing PS3 games was like, and I never gotten to experience it really, and now I did. So I'm really glad that we didn't drop like $600 or whatever it was to get one of these in 06.
Yeah, and it didn't really have much as far as like games to play for it for a good while as well. Like, it took a while.
Yeah, PS2 was
Sony
getting
to kinda
games
get
that
there.
PS3 didn't get.
Yeah, because like I think it was like what God of War 2 came out after the PS3 on PS2.
Yakuza 2 also came out.
Yakuza 2, we got Persona 4.
Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, 12 was on in 06. We got Persona 4 in 08. Like, all those were PS2 games. And yeah, you could play them on You could play them on a PS3 through backwards compatibility. That's probably why they didn't get PS3 versions. In fact, famously, if you remember when Bully got that Scholarship Edition, that remaster, it was 360 and Wii only. And everyone was like, why was there no PS3 port? And Rockstar was like, oh, you can just play the original on your PS3. And you just pop it right in.
So funny.
I know.
Well, the other thing I think is that, like, for the past, like, couple decades, and this is probably just an American thing, right? But people have been able to finance all these electronics buys, usually by doing stupid stuff like taking out a HELOC. And that was about to come to an end. You know, taking a HELOC was not about to be an option.
Yeah, it was about the end of that era, really. But I think this was like the era where consoles like truly blew up. I think this was the beginning of when like video gaming became like truly mainstream. You know, I mean,
I think it's the PS2.
It could just be my age, because I remember like the GameCube era. It's like it felt like it was becoming a big deal, but it felt like it was only a big deal to like me and like my friend group, right? But
I don't think the GameCube and the Xbox were, but I do think the PS2 was big enough.
Like, literally everybody I knew at that time had a PS2. Because they wanted to play GTA, even though we were in like in 4th grade.
Or watch DVDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we were in like 4th grade.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think about it like this, like video games just basically track with Gen X, right? Because if you're Gen Xer, you're a kid for the NES. You're a preteen/young teen for the SNES. You're a like college student-ish for the PS1. Now you're like an adult. You're an adult and you're still playing video games on the PS2. That's mainstream.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You basically just chronicled Burger's life right there.
I mean, and my sister, although she only played Nintendo consoles, but yeah.
Yeah. And then like my siblings, they're older than me. They're still like millennials, but they're like earlier millennials, and they never really
barely millennials.
Yeah, but they never really got hooked on them. Like, they played them quite a bit when they were younger, but when like the PS2 came out and like GTA was a thing, they wanted to play GTA, but they kind of stopped after that and just never cared, you know? And so like my brother, who's like 10 years older than me, you know, he's like gaming peaked back on the Nintendo and the Sega. He's that kind of guy.
And some types of gaming probably did.
In some ways, sure, but you know.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that it all did.
Yeah, but yeah, we're getting off track. But real quick before we go, if you were to tier list Call of Duty 3, because I'm planning to do a tier list of all of these when I'm done, where would you put Call of Duty 3?
That's a good question, and that's hard because I got off having a console when Call of Duty kind of went to shit, I guess, in a lot of people's estimations, which is like the 2010s or like...
Yeah, people started clowning on it with Ghosts.
Right. Like, as soon as we go to, like, PS4, Xbox One, that's when people start that. I mean, I guess even Modern Warfare 3 people were not like super enthused about it. I remember.
Yeah, 3 is a weird one. That'll be an interesting one to revisit.
Yeah, so not having that knowledge of what those games are like is going to make this hard. But this feels like a C to me.
Okay,
it's not a bad game. It's not a great game. It's just there.
Like a low C, a middle C, a high C, or are you thinking like middle?
I think middle of the pack straight up because I've definitely played worse games than this. I don't know about worse Call of Duties, but if you had to give me this game, I wouldn't be mad.
Mm-hmm.
If this was like my Christmas present in 2006.
Oh yeah, you'd get a good amount of time out of it as well, and it would probably be a game that would entice you to try to figure out this online thing. So it's like, it's like, oh, people are doing this. That sounds really fun. Yeah, for me, it's not as good as 2 or Big Red 1. Those are the ones above it at the moment. Those are probably in the Bs. But it's a lot better than Finest Hour, Call of Duty 1, and United Offensive. So yeah, I think middle, high C for me maybe. Like a high 70 at best. There are things about it I appreciate. Trying to be ambitious and try to differentiate itself from the other games. But I think Treyarch would eventually find their footing later. Because I think just right now, I don't want to say incompetent. That's not correct. I just don't think they were up to snuff yet with Infinity Ward. Because
they're the B-list, B-side, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Because right before this, they were doing the Spider-Man games, and they
which are good.
Yeah, which are great still. And they helped out with the Xbox port of Tony Hawk. So they hadn't even really found their footing as a developer yet either. So probably when they kind of fell into the COD hole, for lack of a better term, they were able to figure it out. And with their next installment in the series, which is World at War, you notice a weird one, but you notice a drastic improvement from this one.
Right.
But that will be a story for another day. So,
hey, some people in just a few years are going to argue they prefer the Treyarch games to the Infinity War games, even if they don't phrase it like that.
I think people these days view Treyarch as the A-team now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like a lot of people prefer Black Ops to Modern Warfare. Just depends on who you are.
Yeah, because Black Ops goes in some crazy directions. But I'll talk about that later. So
spoilers.
Spoilers. The numbers, Mason. It's the first time I got to say that. So that concludes this episode with Call of Duty 3. Thank you so much, Will, for coming on for this, for being the first guest on Thrack Ops.
It's an honor, man.
Do you feel
I enjoy
special?
Listening every couple weeks. I do. I feel like a real special snowflake. It's probably all the Tylenol.
Yeah, exactly.
So we keep making those jokes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was too easy, right?
Really, just like your mom. Got him.
Oh, it's Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty.
We're taking it back.
It's Call of Duty.
Rated M for
jokes.
middle school. Yep.
But yeah, man, thank you for coming on for this. It was great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to come on for one of the crazy later ones. You let me know. If
I don't know that I'm ever going to have the time to play them, but if you guys decide to do have a couple people on to do a full tier list of this, I'll do my homework and come with some informed opinions.
Okay. Well, maybe when I eventually do the episode on Call of Duty Engage, I'll be like, you're the man for that.
There it is.
But yeah, so this is going to be the last Thrack Ops for a little bit, probably like a month or so, because I'm going on a Yakuza trip to Hawaii where I'll be doing Ichiban things. So so I won't be back. So I won't be back till like middle of October. And then I have some things in the works, if I could talk, for the next installment, which is obviously Call of Duty 4, because that's a big one. So it might be it'll probably be about a month till the next one comes out, but I promise you I have reasons for that. So
we'll be looking forward to it.
I hope you are, as well as I am. So, but anyway,
I like listening to them.
Thank you. So until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.